Why do you follow somebody? Why do you have to follow a guru? Why do you have to listen to any other person to understand your own mind? This happens because we have been programmed so deeply to listen to other people, and we don't recognize that it is us who functions with this mind. It's very important to understand that when you're on a spiritual journey and you're following a guru or you're following somebody, it's not going to lead you anywhere. It's only going to lead you in the illusions of your mind, because the mind is such that it will keep you in that loop. It will keep you in its subsystems. It has a lot of processes. It has a lot of functions that it runs with, that you're not even aware, because you're following somebody else's approach of how to live with this mind. And that's why it's very important to understand that in a spiritual journey, you're not going to go anywhere if you keep following another person. And if you do not sit with your own mind, if you do not understand what your own mind is doing, you're not going to go anywhere. And that's why you feel stuck. That's why you feel dependent on other people to tell you what to do. Meditations have become a very common phenomenon now. Has its place. Meditations gives temporary relief, a lot of relief to people whose mind is always on the go. It's always on. So just in those 10 minutes of doing those meditations or chanting or any of those meditations that people are made to do, what usually happens is you are hooked. You're actually hooked to those practices. And what is a practice? Practice is something that you do with your mind. And spirituality is all about, true spirituality is all about going beyond the mind and then living with it. I have myself followed a guru for 8 years, and even though that led me to a lot of deep realizations, but those realizations were still of the mind. And those meditations or those kriyas or those practices that are offered by those centers, by those spiritual retreats, you go anywhere in the world. These gurus, these so-called spiritual leaders, provide you with methods. They very well know that methods will keep you in the mind. They do that because they want to run a business out of it. You are a part of that business. And that's why it's very important to come out of that business that you're a part of, that you have put yourself into their business. There's only so much a person can tell another person, right? But there are people who will just continue doing that because they're so hooked to those practices. I was myself in that journey for 7 years. But in the new year of 2023, I realized that following any person in this world to have an insight about life is not going to work. It's not going to work because let me give you an example. You have a car, you drive the car, but you do not know how the internals of the car work. And if any problem comes with the car, you take it to a repair person, and the repair person gets it fixed for you, and then you continue riding the car. Here the problem is in spirituality, the car is the mind, and who you are going to get your mind fixed is a guru or a spiritual leader or anybody else for that matter. And this is only in the context of understanding the mind and going beyond the mind. Let me be very clear on that. It has nothing to do with therapy. It has nothing to do with healing. This is only in the context of finding the truth. And when you really want to find the truth, you should not be following in all directions in so many people's methods. Because if you sit by yourself and you figure it out, if you really ask yourself, do I really need a method to see my own mind? Why would you even want a practice to see your own mind? Because it's something which is always there with you. And just to continue that analogy about the car and the repair person being your guru, and you're the driver of the car, which is your mind. You're the one who's going to drive it every single day. But what happens in those meditations is you do those for 10 minutes. You do that for 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the night, in the evening, and you get hooked to it. That's like taking your vehicle to the repair guy on a daily basis. That's not a good service there. The real service happens when you don't have to go to the service guy, where the car just runs smoothly, where you know how to maintain the car yourself. It's your mind. Nobody can tell you how to look at it. If anybody is telling you how to look at it, that's again a system. Looking is so pure. It has to be pure to look at the reality of your own mind, because the contents of the mind are so much, and it involves thoughts, involves imagination. These are the two essential aspects of the mind. But what usually happens is we are so lost in the thoughts. We do not even know what a thought is. I'm sure till now nobody has told you that thought is essentially a sound. What you hear on the outside, swinging outside over here, the sound of the rain falling down on earth is equivalent to the sound of your thought. Do you give that much importance to the sound of the rain? You don't. But why do you give so much importance to your own sound of your thoughts? That's something to think about. That is why when I have done a lot of meditations too, and this is why I think I'm one of the people who has gone beyond that. And I can clearly tell you that the chanting that we do, right? It keeps you in the mind. There is no way that chanting is going to lead you beyond the mind, because what happens is it's a repetition. Something is repeated on and on and on. The mind is addicted to it. It gets addicted to it. And when the mind gets addicted to something, it cannot let go of it. It's very similar to drinking or any addictions for that matter, because there's a meaning attached to it. Maybe when you're doing meditation or when you're looking at a picture of some guru, you would feel a certain sense of joy in it. It's a sense of happiness. And that's essentially happening because you're in a bad state in your day-to-day life. But what happens during meditation, it takes you to a different level of experience. You're experiencing something when you're experiencing something that you do not usually experience on a day-to-day basis. What usually happens is that feels better than what you're facing in your daily life. But true spirituality is how to integrate awareness about your daily life and not have issues with it. Sure, there would be issues about so many things in life, but you are not a problem. Your thought is not a problem, and that's the only time where you can handle any situation in life. You can handle any people in your life, be it at work or in family. But this gets really problematic if you're only going to be peaceful when you meditate. How does it even sound that you only become peaceful when you're meditating for those 10 minutes in a particular day? What about the rest 23 hours? And so it's a long time, 23 hours. Even if you're meditating for half an hour, that's 1 hour of you being peaceful. What about the rest 23 hours? The true spirituality is all about being meditative 24/7. Let me repeat that again. True spirituality is all about being meditative 24/7. And to be meditative 24/7, you don't need any method. What you need is awareness. And this is where people get it so wrong. And this is so simple, right? You may be thinking this guy is just talking nonsense. But no, answers to the truth of life has always been simple. It's the religions, it's the gurus, it's the society that has made it complicated. So when you have already gone through all this hooligans, through all this madness of the society, of what people have made a business out of also, spirituality has become a business now. It's only a mindset that is growth oriented that will see that okay, this does not work. This is only keeping me stuck in a particular place, and this is keeping me stuck in another particular place. So if you just keep jumping from one place to the other, you're not going to reach anywhere. So the only direction you're supposed to be going when it comes to finding the truth is yourself. This is very hard to do because it's very easy to just follow a person, right? It's very easy to just get on YouTube, just listen to some random guy and just follow that person. And I would be the last person to be followed. I do not want anybody to follow here. I do not want followers. What I want is for you to realize that you following another person in your life is not going to lead you to the truth. Truth is something that essentially you need to first find about yourself, about who you truly are, psychologically first. And then, when you keep working on that, when you keep questioning about your own existence, about how you yourself function in with other people, with yourself, in your day-to-day life, that's when it becomes it will keep going deeper and deeper. And that's when things really get magical. It's happened with me. And that's why I can be very sure and I can say it with certainty that once you keep questioning your own ways of working in your work, in your family, with yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you react to people, what you get triggered for, and all these things are an amalgamation of problems in the mind. It's a lot of work. Spirituality is not something for everybody. Sure, mindfulness makes it look like that. But mindfulness is all about just being. It's a very superficial approach of spirituality. Mindfulness is not spirituality. Spirituality is something very subtle, first thing, and it's very deep. And these two are something that people do not have. It's subtle, meaning it's very simple. It's subtle, meaning it's in the slightest of things that you do, in the slightest of moments. It's deep. It's deep as in people believe in a lot of things and they believe it deeply, of course. But what those beliefs do is they keep them in the loop of their beliefs. Essentially, what are beliefs? Beliefs are nothing but something that people believe in, right? I have two hands, you have two hands, and I hope you do not suffer from any physical ailments. We all have one head, right? We all have one. You know you have one brain. You know you have two eyes. You know you have two ears. You know you have two legs to walk. These are not beliefs. This is something that you actually see as a fact. In the same way, the mind can be seen as a fact. The mind can be approached with observation. And that's why it's very important to stay clear of all the gurus that tell you that you need to keep rising. There's nothing to rise. And there's no progress in spirituality, to be very honest. The progress actually happens in your depth of awareness. When people talk about progress, it's actually very psychological. Sure, when it comes to trauma healing, it's a different kind of work. But I'm talking about finding the truth here. And I'm talking about not following a guru. I have myself followed a guru for 7 years. And I would be the last person to tell you to follow a guru because I've been on that path. I've struggled. I've seen other people struggle. Initially, it sounds really nice, it sounds fantastical. But later on, once you're hooked to it, it just devours your whole entire balance in life because that's not a balanced way to live. Balanced way to live is bringing spirituality in your day to day life, bringing spirituality in your relationships with yourself and with other people. And that's why I firmly believe that following a guru will not lead you to the truth. And truth is something that cannot be reached, it cannot be sought after. Truth is something that is very pure. It's the most subtlest thing to realize for a human being. And I have been fortunate enough to be in that perfect environment, physically and psychologically, to experience that moment of awakening. And I'm here talking about not following a guru only because I know what worked for me. And what worked for me has to work for the people because the truth is not different. The way you approach the truth may be different, but what you end up doing about it, how you end up in your mind, how you end up being stuck in the mind, it can be different. And the mind has a lot of illusions, a lot of illusions. If you analytically go about figuring out what psychology is all about, it will take you a lifetime and you will still not figure it out. But with observation, it just takes a minute, a second. And when you get into that level of awareness, it's a really different level of awareness. And that's why I call it meta awake. It's not the normal awareness. Awareness is something where you're just mindful about, okay, this is there and this person is there and that tree is there and everything. It's about being in union with everything. To know that everything in life is happening at once. I've spoken about some of these things in my course in Udemy, Mindfulness for everybody. So the major factor why I brought in nilness into mindfulness was that's the missing part in mindfulness because mindfulness is just about the superficial level of being aware. But when you bring in emptiness into it, when you bring in that emptiness, which is there in all the scriptures of spirituality, that takes it to the next level. And if you look at the top level, it's all about being meta awake, to be consistently. It's choiceless awareness. It's something that you don't do. But to get there, you're supposed to do some inner work. Inner work as in observing how you think, observing what thoughts are, observing your own patterns, your beliefs, where do you come from, how were you brought up. And all this takes a lot of inner work. And it's very important to understand that truth is not something that another person can give you. They cannot give you because it's not theirs to give. It's nobody's. It's not even any of human beings. Because life, existence, or you call it whatever, is something that is like a flow. It can't be owned. And business is something that we humans have created, turning everything into a business. And especially when a guru is followed, there are like millions of followers for that particular guru. What usually happens is that guru ends up being greedy for more and more and more. And that's not true spirituality. True spirituality is something where if you heard about Gurukul, it would just be the guru and a few set of disciples. That's it. That's all. And that's what true teaching is all about. But now it's been corrupted. And that's why with my Meta coaching, I coach very few people throughout the year. And I take in 12 people every year, but I make sure that I'm there for them. It's a 4-month course where for the whole 4 months I am there with those people. There are 12 2-hour sessions that I have with each of the person, and these are people who are really interested in spiritual growth. That's why there's a set of criterias that I have established to take people for that particular program. And this is not for everybody. But if you're somebody who is really serious about finding the truth, being meta awake is the only way. And that will come from you. Even though I would be saying as a second person to you, even though I would be there for you during those difficult times, it is only because I want to be there as a guide and not someone as an authority. And I would be there because I know, and I have been there, and I didn't have anybody when I was going through my own spiritual journey. So I know how tough it gets, and I know how I would have given anything if I had support at that time. If I had a person who is awakened to be there, to guide me towards a particular direction, to hold me responsible if I'm just diverting from something. It took me 8 years, and I'm packing that up in 4 months. That's what meta coaching is all about. Coming back to gurus, I know a lot of people believe in religions, a lot of people follow God, so called idealized gods, and all these scriptures. But trust me, all this is part of the mind. And the mind is not something that has been there just because you are like 20, 30, 50 years. Mind has been there for millennia. The human mind is something which we have just owned. It's just a little part of life. And I call it the mind of humanity that we all experience. Because it is not your mind, it is not my mind. It is the mind of humanity. That is why it is very important to understand how the mind functions first. What the mind is. What one thought is. Forget about thoughts. That's why being meta aware is very important. And it's only through meta awareness where you will be meta awake.